Have you ever tried to explain Parkinson's pain to somebody you love, and then halfway through, you just stop talking? And not because you didn't want support and not because you didn't trust them, but because you could just tell they were already lost. And in that moment, you thought, this is taking more energy than I actually have. Well, if you've ever decided it was just easier to say nothing, then this episode is for you because today we're going to talk about why Parkinson's pain is so hard to explain, even to the people who love us the most. And I'm going to give you some practical things that can actually help with these conversations without turning them into a medical lecture. Because you know what? None of us signed up for that.
Welcome to Living with Parkinson's. The good, the bad, and the reality. Real talk, real life, real community with Bryce Perry. Let's begin.
Well, welcome to the episode. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're new, my name is Bryce, and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's at the age of 40, and I've been living with it now for over 15 years. After the last episode on stiffness and rigidity, the comments just kept coming, and they're still coming today. I feel heard. Me too. No one understands. I can't even explain this to my husband or my wife. And that last one really stuck with me. Because here's part of the problem. Parkinson's pain doesn't behave. It doesn't stay in one place. It doesn't follow a schedule. And it doesn't politely announce itself. 1 hour you're okay. And the next hour, your body feels like it got rear-ended by life. From the outside, that looks confusing. And from the inside, it's exhausting. And then comes the sentence that we've all heard. But you were fine earlier. Now listen, most people don't mean anything bad by that. They're just trying to make sense of it. But fine doesn't mean pain-free. Fine means coping. Fine means managing. Fine means I use tomorrow's energy to survive today. Trying to explain Parkinson's pain is like trying to explain why your phone battery goes from 40% to dead in 6 minutes. You weren't streaming a movie. You didn't leave the flashlight on. You didn't do anything wrong. It just dropped. And when someone says, but your phone was working earlier, you're like, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. That was extremely helpful. And, so after a while, you just stop explaining. You start what I call editing yourself. You stop mentioning the pain. You stop correcting people. You stop saying, actually, this hurts. And not because you're okay, but because you're tired of feeling dismissed, feeling dramatic, or like you're ruining the mood. And I've done this on more times than I can count. There are days that I know that if I try to explain what's happening in my body, it's going to take diagrams, hand gestures, analogies, probably a whiteboard, right? And on those days, my body feels like a rusty shopping cart with one bad wheel that keeps pulling to the left. And I always get those anyway. But so instead, I just simply say, I'm fine. And then I immediately think, that was wildly inaccurate. But it was easier. You see, Parkinson's pain, it's also like trying to drive a car with a broken gas gauge. Sometimes you're cruising, sometimes the engine sputters, sometimes the car just decides, you know what? Today we're done. You just never know. And everyone around you is saying, but you just filled up the car with gas yesterday. Yeah, I did. And yet here we are on the side of the road out of gas. What do you want me to say? So let me give you a few things that actually can help. Nothing fancy, nothing perfect, just some real life stuff. All right, number one thing that helps is stopping the over-explaining. You don't need to explain every symptom, every fluctuation, every reason why today feels different than yesterday. Sometimes, most of the time, all you need to say is, today is a hard body day. And that's it. No appendix, no footnotes, no follow-up questions that you don't have the energy to answer. All right, number two. Another thing that helps is setting expectations early. It's okay to say, this might not make sense, but it's real. That one sentence alone takes a huge amount of pressure off of you. All right, number three. It's another big one. Pain changes how we show up. It can make us quieter, shorter, less chatty. And the other person can think, did I do something wrong? So one sentence can prevent a whole lot of misunderstanding. And I've used this one more times than I can count. I'm not mad. I'm just hurting. That line has saved a lot of unnecessary tension. Another thing people don't talk about enough, you're allowed to say less. You don't owe anybody a full neurological breakdown just to rest. Protecting your energy is not being rude. It's being realistic. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can say is, I can't explain it right now, but I'm struggling. Okay, and the last one. Ask for belief, not fixing. It's okay to say, I don't need advice. I just need you to believe me. Because a lot of people jump into fixing mode when they feel helpless, right? But belief is support. And if you're a care partner listening, that sentence right there, that's a cue. Your job is not to solve Parkinson's. Your job is to be steady. And with that, I'll now turn it over to Carmen's Care Partner Corner. And here is what Carmen, my wife, wrote for me to read to you today. Living with someone who has Parkinson's means learning that pain doesn't always announce itself. There are days when Bryce looks okay, sounds okay, and is doing his best to be okay. And then there are days when I can feel something is really off, even if he doesn't say a word. So what I've learned is that silence doesn't mean nothing is wrong. Most of the time it means he's trying to protect his energy. I used to think that if I could just figure out the pattern, that I could help more. But Parkinson's doesn't follow patterns. It follows its own rules. What's helped us the most is letting go of trying to predict how his body will feel and focusing on connection instead of explanations. Instead of asking why something hurts or trying to make sense of it, I've learned to ask one simple question. What do you need from me right now? Sometimes the answer is help. Sometimes it's space. Sometimes it's just patience. And I've learned not to take his quiet personally. His silence isn't distance. It's self-preservation. You don't have to understand Parkinson's pain to support it. You just have to stay present when it doesn't make sense. Well, thank you, Carmen. That's amazing. That was really good. If this episode sounds like your life, I'd really love to hear from you. What has been the hardest part of explaining Parkinson's pain to the people you love? You're not complaining, you're connecting. And you know what? Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with today's Bryce-ism. With Parkinson's, explaining pain feels like giving a TED talk to someone who just asked you what time it was. And that's why we stopped talking. All right, if this episode's helped you feel seen, consider sharing it with somebody who needs to hear it. And if you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe and be a part of the community. Leave a comment. Let me know you're here. Let me know it's your first time watching. I read every comment. And until next time, I want you to keep showing up. I want you to keep being real. And I want you to keep doing life today. I'll see you on the next episode. Love you guys.
Parkinson's may be part of your life, but it doesn't get to define it. Thanks for listening to Living with Parkinson's, the good, the bad, and the reality. If this episode moved you, helped you, or reminded you you're not alone, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Want to go deeper? The Inner Circle is waiting. Monthly Zoom calls, 24/7 community, and a direct line to Bryce. You'll find the link in the show notes. Until next time, keep showing up and keep doing life today.